of the Food Systems Program, and we have Nichole Witham with us, and Abba Kaiser, she's in that office as well, and Tia Taylor. So we make up the core staff for the Food Systems Program, and we have several Food Systems team members on the call today, as well as many of you working across the Washington food system. So I want to just welcome all of you. You can see this beautiful picture. This was a year ago when we were actually on a farm walk, so at Broad-Eyed Acres. So just a reminder of some of the ways that we used to convene and hang out together to talk about the Washington food system. So today's meeting, I'll give a brief overview of the WSU Food Systems COVID-19 Hub, our needs assessment tool. Just look at, again, the current high need is still definitely fiscal support for food and farm businesses. We're going to have speakers today talking about the WSDA Farm to Food Pantry program. So we're going to welcome Nichole Garden from the WSDA, Kendra Dean from Catholic Charities, and Jennifer Short from the Okanagan Community Action Council. We're also going to hear about the USDA Farmers to Families Food Box program with Chris Iberly. And then we'll have some time to share. And I know we already had quite an engaging conversation before the call started about some of the processing disruptions around meat. So I'm sure that will be a topic that will come up, as well as be thinking about other things that you'd like to share. So please introduce yourself in the Zoom chat box. You can tell us who you are, where you're located, and what you do. Please also use the chat box to ask questions and share links and resources for the group. We welcome you in this space, and we really want to make it a place for you to connect and share resources. We also go through that chat box after our call. We download it, and we're able to update those resources into our COVID-19 Hub website. So if there's something that you really don't see posted and it should be there, please put a link to that and share other information that you have about your programs. And this is also a great place to ask questions as we're moving through the meeting today. For participants, we can call on you or you can ask questions right in that chat box, and we'll try to get them addressed as we move through the program. So the WSU Food Systems Program is a program that really reaches across the expanse of WSU with academic research and extension, faculty and staff that provide specialized resources for farmers and food system contributors. We seek to work with communities throughout the state to foster viable farm businesses, optimize sustainable natural resource stewardship, and to promote scaled processing and distribution, always in the pursuit of access to healthy food for all. And you can see on the right hand of this slide our 7 focus areas: sustainable farming practices, equitable access, energy and waste reduction, processing and distribution, policy and regulation, economic benefits, and farmland and resource conservation. The food systems team collaborates on initiatives that promote research, implement change, and promote unparalleled educational opportunities, or provide unparalleled educational opportunities for farm and food system stakeholders throughout the state. You can see here all of the 39 county offices and our tribal office on the Colville Nation, and then our WSU campuses. And this is just a good reminder as well about the Drive Wi-Fi program, where you can find information on our website specifically about where you can access free broadband at many of these WSU locations across the state. So the WSU Food Systems COVID-19 Hub, the purpose of the hub is to provide a space to connect regularly with both WSU and external partners working across the food system, to collect and update COVID-19 resources to support the Washington food system. We also have a dynamic needs assessment tool, the NAT, that we deploy on a weekly basis, and also just to provide time and space to share stories and receive support from one another as we're all working in isolation through this time. A reminder of our calendar of events page, so you can find this at our on our website, and this is being updated on a regular basis, so you can see some of the workshops that are coming up We have a Cultivating Success webinar that will be offered next week, as well as Introduction to Veteran County, State, and Federal Benefits. There's several different resources that are available on our calendar of events. If you don't see your event there, but you'd like it listed, please reach out to us. You can post a link in the chat box, or you can send an email directly to one of us, and we'll make sure that that gets posted. And this is just a reminder, you can take this right now if you want. We'll post a link in the chat box for the week of, Nichole, what's the week again that we're looking at? It was last week. It ended in the 22nd.
Week 17, the 17th through the 23rd.
There you go, 17th through the 23rd. Thank you. Didn't have my calendar open. So if you can go in there and post information about needs across the food system, if you can share this link with your stakeholders, that would be great. We're trying to get as many folks using this as possible. I know we're asking you to do it every week, but really just as often as you can, if you can only do it once a month, if you can only do it every 2 weeks, whatever works for you, but please try to go in and fill this out so that we are able to get dynamic information about what's happening across the state of Washington and across many of our communities in terms of food system resources. One of the current high needs that we continue to see is from the NAT analysis is looking for fiscal relief for food and farm businesses. And so again, this is obviously one of the highest needs that we continue to see. I know we heard about this last week with some of the work that's happening. We have some people on the call today that maybe we can have some updates about other county and regional efforts to create particular funds to directly benefit food and farm businesses, whether they're grant or loan programs. I know we heard about the program last week from the Olympic Peninsula and what it's doing to help support both the Farm to Food Pantry program as well as farmers on the Olympic Peninsula. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over. I'm hoping that Nichole, Kendra, and Jennifer are on the call by now. And we're going to spend some time today talking specifically about the Farm to Food Pantry program. I know we heard about it last week, and we've had a couple different discussions about this over the last month or so with people who are currently participating in the program. And we're really excited to be able to welcome Nichole and Kendra and Jennifer today to tell us a little bit more. So I'm going to turn it over.
Well, hello. Can everyone hear me?
Perfect, yes.
Okay. I always have to check because, with technology and our new situation, you never know. Well, I just want to say thank you so much to Nichole and Laura and all the WSU Food Systems staff for having me here to talk about Farm to Food Pantry Initiative. I heard last week you got to hear from our great cohort partners, Diane Fish at the Kitsap Conservation District and Shara at WSU. So I'm glad that you heard their stories, and I'm happy to give you a little foundational information about the initiative. So my name's Nichole Garden, and I work for the Department of Agriculture's Food Assistance Programs as a food assistance specialist and farm to community liaison. Let's see if my slides are going to help me. Okay, there we go. So just to give you a little context of our programs, the WSDA Food Assistance Programs manages 7 state and federal programs that support food banks, pantries, and meal programs across the state. And our federal programs include the Emergency Food Assistance Program, otherwise known as TFAP, the Senior Focused Commodity Supplemental Food Program, CSFP, and the Trade Mitigation Program, which USDA now calls the Food Purchase and Distribution Program, that all supply commodity foods and some administrative and operational funding to food pantries and meal programs. The Farm to Food Bank Initiative is a new federal program that was initiated this year that supports the harvest, processing, packaging, or transportation of unharvested, unprocessed, or unpackaged commodities that are donated by agriculture producers, processors, or distributors for the use by TFAP contractors and subcontractors. And I'll go into that a little bit later on. It's a new program that we're still trying to implement and figure out new projects for, but it's an exciting new development. So our state programs include the Emergency Food Assistance Program, not to be confused with the Federal Emergency Food Assistance Program. And that provides flexible funding to food banks and pantries to purchase food, pay employees, and keep the lights on. Through our EFAP Tribal Program, tribes or tribal organizations can utilize the same funding to support a food pantry or administer what we call a grocery voucher. And that brings us to our last program, which brought me here today, which actually is not considered a program in WSDA's eyes yet, but we are working on that. So hopefully it will become a fully funded program in the future. So before we get into what the Farm to Food Pantry is, I just wanted to give you a little bit of snapshot of what food security looked like in our state pre-pandemic. So last year, Washington Food Pantries distributed about 148 million pounds of food to 1.2 million hungry people. And this was the first time in 8 years that the number of visits to food pantries were below 8 million. So it was a big deal. The COVID-19 pandemic, of course, has resulted in a 10.3% increase in unemployment claims from February to April. And within this increase in job loss, many are turning to food pantries to help feed their families. And this dramatic increase in the number of food insecure individuals has seen roughly triple the number of clients visiting the food pantries. And we definitely anticipate that record numbers of people will rely on food pantries for years to come as we move into the recovery and long-term economic crisis that's about to come before us. So the USDA dietary guidelines, as you know, recommends that adults eat an average of 2 cups of fruit a day and 3 cups of vegetables as part of a healthy eating pattern. Yet, according to the Center for Disease Control, only 13% of Washington residents meet the recommended daily intake of fruit, and only 11 meet their recommended vegetable intake. Last year, there was a state SNAP-Ed needs assessment, and that found that 77% of SNAP eligible adults and 82% of youth consumed less than 5 servings of fruit and vegetables a day. And these nutritional disparities often increase, of course, when the household relies on the primarily shelf-stable food that USDA provides. To address these disparities, the CDC has recommended the linking large-scale producers of fruit and vegetables, such as hunger relief organizations, with local farms and regional food hubs that aggregate and distribute produce as potential action to increase the fruit and vegetable consumption. And keeping that recommendation in mind, WSDA Food Assistance partnered with Harvest Against Hunger, which was formerly Rotary First Harvest, a Seattle-based nonprofit that was already helping to capture surplus produce and divert it to food banks. In 2013, Harvest Against Hunger gathered local growers to discuss how community members and hunger relief organizations can better support agriculture vitality while partnering with farmers to feed Washington State. The participants included food banks, farmers, community organizers, funders, and general public and volunteers. And these participants, the farm participants were mostly small-scale market farmers that farmed on less than 25 acres. And one of the key takeaways from these conversations was that we need to find ways to create a more reciprocal food system connection. And so many of small farmers are teetering on financial and food insecurity themselves. And a small infusion of cash at the beginning of the season can make a huge difference in a farmer's success. Thus, the Farm to Food Pantry Initiative was established in 2014. And the initiative goes beyond just increasing lower income individuals' access to fresh produce. It also seeks to help promote community-based food systems, increase the viability and success of both agriculture producers and emergency food assistance providers. The initiative functions as an incubator, and where new market-based farm to food pantry models are being tested every season. Farm to Food Pantry expands existing markets for farmers and creates new ones, strengthening local food systems through symbiotic relationships between food pantries and growers, resulting in participating growers donating additional produce with little additional impact to their existing business model. So how does it work? Well, this is our little flow chart, and as flow charts are, sometimes they can be very confusing. So I'll walk you through it a little bit. So WSDA Food Assistance engaged Harvest Against Hunger to coordinate the allocation of the grant funds, as well as manage and develop the initiative. Harvest Against Hunger then passes through the majority of that funding to hunger relief agencies across 20 counties. And those hunger relief organizations then source a minimum of $500 in community match funding and use the combined funding to establish purchasing contracts with their local farms, typically early in the growing season, so getting the money to farmers at that critical point. Those local farms fulfill their contracts through the growing season, providing nutrient-dense produce to food pantries and meal programs. We have found that once relationships are established between farmers and hunger relief produce donations and gleaning opportunities increase, bringing even more produce into the hunger relief system. So the dual impacts for farmers and hungry families is, well, we've grown from 4 lead agencies in 2014 to 15 lead agencies in 2020. And we now serve 20 counties compared to the 4 counties we served before. Produce purchased through this initiative has been distributed to 163 food pantries that serve more than 402,000 people annually. And in 2007, in 7 years, WSDA has invested $241,000 in this initiative, with $198 for direct wholesale purchasing from local growers. And the average wholesale price paid to farmers last year was 107 cents per pound. That fluctuates every year. And the intention of that is not to pay a low price. It's just the way that we leave it up to our farm to food pantry cohort members to determine the pricing and work with their farmers to get the best price for themselves and the best produce that meets their needs.
And Nichole, there's just a question here from Steve Kreider in the chat. He's just wanting a little clarifying. He's just asking, so, and it sounds like you may have just answered his question, Steve, the paying full price for farmers and their produce.
Yeah, so typically it's a wholesale pricing, but the beauty of this initiative is we've really tried to keep it flexible, because we know that communities know how to meet their own needs, and farmers are going to set the prices too. So like, for example, with Kitsap or like New Hunger Coalition, which is in Stevens Ferry and Ponderay, they have a set price list that they work off of per produce item, and typically it's not $1.07 per pound. So I think that $1.00 per pound is averaged out. You know, we're talking about like potatoes versus lettuce, leafy greens. You know, you're going to get very different pricings there. So right now we have just bulked it together. So we've just said all produce it lumped in one format to collect those poundage, because in food pantry world we speak to pounds more than we speak to what the actual product is, which is, you know, not super helpful when you're talking, again, potatoes versus leafy greens. So one strategy that we're going to try to implement either probably next season, is breaking up the produce into, you know, green vegetable or green fruits and vegetables, yellow fruits and vegetables, so we can highlight those different vitamins that can be found in each product. So that's just in the works right now, so we can highlight those things a little differently, and it might give us a little bit more perspective on how much was paid per pound for specific types of produce items. Did I answer your question, Steve? I can't see the chat.
Yeah, in general. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And in 2019, it was and it was funded, 49% of the initiative was funded with local matching dollars, which is amazing. The year before it was 58%. So again, that fluctuates depending on how much community buy-in our lead organizations can get. But the total produce purchases were $65,000 just last year from 93 farms. So this is essentially just a partnership, and it speaks to so much. This partnership between WSDA, Harvesting Hunger, and the 15 participating hunger relief organizations is a prime example how state agencies can collaborate with nonprofits to really make a significant statewide impact. For example, for every $1 invested by WSDA in 2019, 10 pounds of nutrient-dense produce went to food banks. I apologize. So that says a lot, and that's due to matching funding and also produce donation and gleaning opportunities. And by putting the purchasing power in the hands of hunger relief organizations like the ones you see on the screen, we know that their communities are best helped by decentralizing the hunger relief system and allowing them to choose what's best for their communities. And one great thing about the cohort is there's constantly sharing of best practices and ideas and feeding off of one each other. And we take some of those best practices and we try to support them financially by replicating them. So.
And Nichole, I just wanted to let you know, I'm trying to help you out here since you can't see the chat. Laura Raymond just has a question. She says, in 2019, 49% included the 65,000 total, or is that on top of 65K?
No, it included. So last year, I'll speak to the funding a little bit. So there has not been dedicated funding for this initiative. So this has all been pieced out of that EFAP program that I mentioned before. And so up until this year, we've only had about $33,000 to pass through to these lead agencies. So that's a $2,200 contract, not very big. Some of those lead agencies were able to triple that amount or even quadruple that amount, and having the state buy-in actually helped them get those community matches and donations. So that 65,000 is with that donations as well. This year, which I'm going to go into in a little bit, we were lucky enough to have advocates go to bat for us, and we got some some funding within our budget proviso and for the supplemental budget. And so we did get some additional funding, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. So what we've heard from our farm partners about the initiative is that they were able to pay bills for early season startup costs, seeds and fertilizer. It helped them make critical infrastructures and investments of a walk-in refrigerator early in the growing season. And the additional cold storage capacity allows them to store their crops better in greater volumes. And I'll go into that a little bit too with our Farm to Food Bank initiative. Our program, sorry. Participating in this program gave us the ability to plant some crops that we were interested in growing, but did not yet have a market for. And once these crops were ready to harvest, we were able to find additional market outlets, which made them profitable for our farm. So that goes back to just being this incubator. So it really, our goal is to really help those small farmers get up and running and kind of expand their markets. So in all, last year, 93 growers participated in the initiative, many playing dual roles of both seller and donor. And as I said before, they were paid $65,000 through WSDA grants and matched funds. And in return, participating agents purchased about 61,000 pounds of produce and received approximately 254,000 additional pounds through donations and gleaning events for a total of 315,000 pounds of fresh nutrient-dense produce. It's amazing. As you see on the screen, we do survey our farmers, and this is, I have to provide a caveat that this is probably about 20% of our farmers responded to this survey. And of those farmers, 74% said that their annual gross income was less than $100,000, and indicated that 13% of their income came from these farm to food pantry contracts. One great thing that we have going on is this again, sharing best practices. One of our cohort members created these grower appreciation cards, not only as a way to connect the food pantry clients to the growers themselves and say thank you, but also to get some, information on what to purchase in the future and get that client preference in there so we can determine they can determine what to purchase. But there's also just some really amazing stories, and you can see the big impact that it's making on these clients. So some of these things, you're so amazing and giving. Thank you for your hard work of feeding my babies. Thank you for sharing your goods with us. Your kindness comes from and goes to the heart or stomach, and we really enjoy these veggies. And one of my favorites is, you allow a man without means to eat like the wealthy. So as I said before, thanks to the support and advocacy of our many stakeholders, as well as Representative Steele in District 12 and Dye in District 9, we received a budget proviso of $100,000 for state fiscal year 2021. So that starts July 1. And this funding is going to support the Farm to Food Pantry Initiative. Initially, we were going to save that funding for next growing season so we can make a really big impact, but due to COVID, we decided to put half of the funding towards this year. So our actual Farm to Food Pantry cohort members next week will be receiving an amendment to their current contract, and will be receiving additional funding. And you know, this comes at a critical time. What we heard from farmers is like, we really need some support right now. And so we wanted to make sure that they felt supported. We continue to advocate for the expansion of this program to increase the state purchasing dollars. From this year, it's $73,000 in state funding to, and we want to increase it to $150,000 in 2021 in order to make it a permanent state and to make it a permanent state funded program. So Farm to Food Bank projects, as I said, that is the federal funded project that goes to support the harvest, the transportation, the packaging and processing of donated agriculture product. The first year of this funding, because it came at us during COVID, we found out actually right after COVID hit, right during the pandemic, at our worst moment, that hey, guess what? It's available now, because this was part of the proviso in the 2018 Farm Bill. And so, so we had to act really fast. So this year, the Farm to Food Bank funding will be focused on Chelan County, Douglas County, Stevens County, Monterey, Ferry, Jefferson, and Kitsap County, and Clallam County. We're still in the planning process right now. We're just gathering our stakeholders, but we do have to work with our TFAP leads in those areas. Preliminary conversations with our stakeholders back in the winter suggest that this funding would best support increasing refrigeration, including refrigerated transport, value-added processing, harvest bins, and cleaning support. So I'm really excited to see what projects we can help fund with this. We're definitely looking for ready-made projects that meet this criteria in those areas. In an effort to provide additional support to both food pantry clients and local farmers, WSDA plans to establish a Farm to Food Pantry Farmers Market Work Group to outline strategies of how food pantries can work with farmers market managers to not only glean produce, but to promote the SNAP Market Match program. I don't know if Diane Fish shared her lovely posters, referral posters that she created last year, but essentially, again, lifting up one of those best practices and trying to replicate it for others. We are in the process of making some promotional materials that cross-market both Farm to Food Pantry and the SNAP Market Match. So we can say, hey, look at this great produce you got at your food pantry. Head over to the market with your EBT card and double your dollars and get some more fresh produce from that farmer. So that is in the works for this year. And I just wanted to do this plug real quick because, you know, what we're talking about with Farm to Food Pantry, Farm to Food Bank is all about waste reduction. Oh, I mean, Farm to Food Pantry is about actually paying a market rate for produce, but it is also about, you know, through those relationships, getting those gleaning opportunities. So today is the last day that the Department of Ecology is taking comments on their statewide food waste reduction plan. So I really encourage anyone who has input on how that can impact farmers or food pantries to reach out and provide your comments. And I've left I'll leave this this link in the chat box too. So just in case you haven't commented already, I really encourage you to do so. And bottom line, to all the farmers out there, thank you so much for fighting hunger by farming. If you have any interest in being part of this partnership or have questions, please reach out to me. Also, a list of all of our partner sites can be found on our website, which I will also put in the chat box. And for now, I want to just introduce Kendra Dean with Catholic Cherries Food for All. And she's going to talk a little bit about what her organization is doing as far as Farm to Food Pantry in her community.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can't.
Yay.
Cool. I apologize, I don't have any slides or pictures or anything to share with you, but I will just talk a little bit about our work and how Farm to Food Pantry has really helped enhance our work and also connected us with a few more farmers, which has been really great. So for those that don't know, Catholic Charities is located in Spokane County. Well, it's actually all of Eastern Washington, but a lot of Food for All's work takes place in Spokane County. with our main mission of getting local food to the hands of low-income people. So we started out doing a lot of the farmers market work. So my coworker, Carolyn, whose name it says on my Zoom because I'm using her account, manages kind of the Finney program, no longer Finney, but the Market Match program. We've been working as regional leads for farmers markets for a while, and also doing some produce delivery and working with our local gleaning organization to get produce directly to where people live. So a lot of our produce delivery started in housing. We've grown from about 10 sites to about 30. So we glean farmers markets, and we also work with the fruit-free gleaners to get that produce. So Farm to Food Pantry really fit right in with what we were doing. We already had a lot of connections to the farmers, and we have a lot of infrastructure that allows us to do those programs. So we have a really great van that does the produce delivery, and we also have a really great shipping container that is a refrigerated unit. So we've used that and allowed partners to use that to drop off produce. So that gets us really set up to move produce really quickly, keep it safe. So when I'm trying to make a list of what I need to talk about. When we started receiving the funding, we first approached a lot of the farmers that had already been donating to us in the past. We wanted to recognize that they're committed to reducing hunger in our community. So we worked with about 6 or 7 farmers last year. It worked out really well since we're gleaning a lot of the farmers markets. A lot of the farmers just brought their produce to the market when we were picking up the gleans, and we were able to pick up their boxes there. And in terms of price point, we actually worked with our local food hub, Link Foods, to set our prices. We wanted to match what they're paying for wholesale prices to ensure that the farmers are getting wholesale costs that match up with our county. So that's where we get our prices from, and we check back with them yearly, and updated quite a bit this year. We upped a lot of prices. So yeah, we have, and then we also, in terms of reaching out to food pantries to make the connection, we're a big county, so there's lots. We can't service them all. So we tried to focus on some that are located outside of the city limits, that maybe aren't receiving as many services, and some that we already had partnerships with. So again, kind of relying on those natural partnerships and making sure that they're able to manage the program in a way that we feel like they know where the produce is coming from. So many of our partners are getting food from several different sources, so we really want to make sure that the clients know that it's local. We put signage on everything that says which farmer it's from, what it is, and really try to recognize this initiative and thank the farmers that work with us. In terms of, so this year was really great when we did get additional funding. We were able to up some contracts and also add a few new farmers. So that's been really great. And we do try to fundraise to buy from those farmers as well. We get the $500 match, but we also, for our low-income housing sites, have gotten a couple grants to purchase. And this year, Link, who's truly an amazing partner, has decided to put a donation button on their online marketplace. So we now have store credit with them to kind of shop for our clients, which allows us to purchase things that clients want, but we don't always get through the Farm to Food Pantry program. In terms of highlighting what clients do want, we do use those postcards. So we take all of that information to put in spreadsheets, and then when I send the price list out to the farmers, we put stars next to everything that the clients prefer. They don't have to do those things, but that's just to let them know what clients are interested in. I think that is kind of how our program works. We have a 48-hour turnaround for all the produce that we do receive, try to make sure it stays as high quality as possible as it gets to the clients. And we've gotten really great feedback from our food pantry partners. They're really excited. They always say that that produce goes first. People are really excited that it's from a local source. And I'm looking forward to doing some of the cross promotion this year. We haven't done it in the past, but trying to incorporate Snap Market Match promotions at food pantries. And we had hoped to do some sampling, but with COVID, I'm not sure if we're able to, but that would be the goal, is to be able to sample some of that fresh produce to teach people how to cook it at the food pantries as well. Does anybody have questions? I just rattled off everything about our program.
Thanks, Kendra. Yeah, does anyone have any questions for Kendra?
Cool. Well, thank you for letting me talk to you guys today.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. It's exciting to hear the strength of your collaboration with Link as well. They have been doing such amazing work out on the east side. So
Yeah, we've been really grateful for them.
great. So, and then we have Jennifer as well.
Hey, Jennifer, are you on the line? Oh, she just texted and said she's on the line.
Do you know which, is she one of the phone numbers potentially?
That's a great
I
question.
don't see her name on the list.
Let me text her real quick.
Because if she's one of the phones, I'm wondering if I have to unmute her manually.
Oh, she's actually responding, so I think she might be on. I bet you she is one of the phones.
Jennifer, can you say hello, Jennifer? I'm going to unmute all the 509 numbers.
Oh, yep, she's 509.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Hello?
There we go. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Great. So thanks for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Jennifer Short, and I'm with Okanagan County Community Action Council, and we are a distribution site for 9 very rural food pantries in Okanagan County. And I just want to say, you know, I mirror a lot of what was already mentioned. We are extremely excited and proud to be part of the Farm to Food Pantry program. And the only other parts I can add is it just really helps strengthen. It's all about relationships with these farmers and orchardists. And we've seen just an enormous amount of donations as part of those relationships. And our farmers that we approached already this growing season or earlier in the start of the season, we're just really excited to hear from us and know that they get that contracted funds, you know, that they can, you know, start their season out with and help sustain them, as Nichole had mentioned, with, you know, fertilizer and other types of costs that they have in their startup. And so we have about 8 farmers that we have contracted with. We use $2,000 worth of our hunger relief funds to match the $2,200. And we just purchased a bunch of startup plants from a farmer as well. And so that's been really great, handing those out at the food pantries throughout all the 9 food pantries. And so not just the food, you know, the produce and the vegetables and things, but also assisting people in perhaps growing their own garden and sharing amongst their communities. So it's great to see them at the farmers market each week. And we're just really excited and proud to be part of the program. And I don't know if anybody has any questions for us, but it's definitely, it's something that I hope continues to grow and expand. And I hope that more funding is allowed in the future.
Jennifer, thanks so much for sharing. Do we have questions for Jennifer or for any of our guests today, Nichole, Jennifer, or Kendra? And I know there's other people on the call that also participate in this program if they want to share a little bit about their experience as well. I know for myself, when I was in Jefferson County, and I don't know if this is something that others have done, but we used some of the matching funds to buy local beef because that wasn't something that you could do with the grant funds. It was primarily produce and fruits. But that was also something that we had a lot of great feedback about in terms of clients being able to get local beef as well. And I'm just wondering if others have done that, or if that's something that is seen as an option.
I can speak to that a little bit. This is Nichole. So that is something that I definitely want to include in Farm to Food Pantry in the future. It's a hard sell right now. So, I mean, fruit and vegetables is always an easy sell, but to sell folks on adding additional products. But I know that grains has come up in the future, especially in Walla Walla, and you know, various sorts of protein and dairy. And so it's definitely something that's on our radar that we want to include in Farm to Food Pantry, maybe in some years in the future when we do have dedicated funding. There are some challenges, as you guys probably will know, with how, you know, certain protein is processed and how it has to be processed in order to get into the hunger relief system. So that is a challenge that we're looking to figure out how we can include those local small farmers if the meat has to be processed at a USDA certified facility.
And speaking of the USDA, I know that the USDA Farmers to Families Food Box program rolled out this last week, and Nichole, we also have Chris Iberly on the line here from the WSDA Regional Markets Program, and wondering if either of you or both of you would like to say a little bit about how any stories or impressions that you've heard of that program this week as it's rolled out.
Yeah, I can speak to it a little bit. Again, so just to give you guys a caveat, while I am a farm to community liaison for the food assistance program, I also am primarily a regional rep for the east side of the state. So I kind of only have a lens for that part of the state, because unfortunately, you know, communication with coworkers right now to figure out what their areas look like is kind of limited, just because we're all in our little zones at the home. But I can say that I've heard mixed things. So I've heard some folks are really excited about it, and the clients are loving the boxes that are what items that are in the boxes. I've heard that there's challenges with there's been some challenges obtaining some of the protein boxes. So if you guys are aware, there's going to be the fruit box, there's a dairy box, and there's a protein box. Luckily, those are not all mingled together like I feared in the beginning. So I know that some people are contracting through, some hunger relief organizations are working with their NGO, so that's the non-governmental organization, Food Lifeline, Second Harvest, and Northwest Harvest, to receive those boxes. Some are working directly with distributors themselves. And, you know, having a box that's not necessarily balanced on a pallet is challenging for food banks. Storing this food safely is challenging unless those food banks, I'm talking on the food bank level right now and not the food pantry, so difference is distribution warehouse to actual client distribution. So the food bank level, safely storing that much fresh product is a challenge. We knew that there's capacity issues in within the hunger relief system, refrigerated capacity and frozen capacity prior to even trade mitigated product. And trade mitigated product, which that came in, was some of the first fresh and frozen product that came into the hunger relief system for a while, because primarily it was shelf stable food. So that increased the challenge of safely storing produce, and it really said, oh, this is a lot of food and we are not able to hold it safely. And so we've known that's an issue. We have made strides to kind of help support building capacity, and through last year's for this year's supplemental budget, we actually do have some capacity granting funding. So we've distributed $40,000 in refrigerated rebate program through Harvest Against Hunger. We're going to, this is probably news, but as of next week, we're going to open that up again, and there's going to be an additional $40,000 available for rebates for refrigeration or freezers. And then in state fiscal year 2021, we're going to have about $129,000 to do the same program. So that's really helping those smaller food pantry level. But we also have bigger grants for, you know, up to $75,000 projects and then even beyond. So that's next state fiscal year. So starting July 1, we'll start distributing some of that funding so we can build that infrastructure back up so they can store those fresh boxes as well as the other fresh product that's coming in. We also have just done some selection within just where we know it needs it. So for example, Okanagan got a new freezer, a new 40-foot freezer shipping container sent to their place, and now they've increased their freezer capacity. I would say, I don't know, Jennifer, you're still on the line. I'd say by double or triple what they had before. And so we're doing projects like that throughout the state to help mitigate those fresh food boxes. So that's probably enough for now.
Yeah, I just have to say that the assistance from your office, Nichole, and just helping us increase our capacity has just been a blessing this year. And we're really excited about being able to bring in more foods and not turn any away. So that's been really exciting.
One thing I did want to mention, and I know Diane knows this too because I posted it on Facebook. So a local person in Thurston County, or in the Thurston Mason Lewis County, posted something that looks very much like those USDA food boxes on Facebook, opening them up to people. It didn't look like they were an actual feeding organization or anything. So I'm not sure how they got those boxes, but there were quite a few boxes, and they were just giving them away on Facebook. And I don't know how they got to those people, first of all, and because we're talking about hundreds of these food boxes, but they most definitely look like USDA food boxes. So interesting things about distribution outside of the hunger relief system.
And Chris?
Thank you so much, Nichole. Go both Nicholes. I know Chris Iverly's on the call as well. And also I saw Karen. I don't know if anyone else from the WSDA wants to share any more information about this program. And we also had some questions in the chat that I wanted to bring up. Pat Muntz from Spokane asked if anyone had seen competition between people who got the grant going after the same farmers. And Steve Kreider from out in Skagit County said, yes, there has been some confusion with the awardees approaching the same growers, and same with the distribution side, contacting the same limited number of food banks. So if either of you want to share a little bit, or Steve, it sounds like you've had a little bit more experience with what's happening up in Skagit and Whatcom.
Well, I'll let Chris Iverly go first if he's got some larger overview, because he's been pulling together other information, and I'm happy to follow up and speak. And I'm not sure if Cole Bitzenberg has made it on the phone, but he's been, I can speak to a little bit from my conversation with him, what he's doing with the Skagit Distribution Center, the Food Bank Distribution Center, if he's not here to speak directly about it.
And Steve, I can chime in and support you too. This is Kate Smith.
Yeah, awesome. This is Chris Iverly from WSDA. I think, yeah, hearing those specific stories on the ground would be great. And I mean, there's just been a lot of layers to the USDA Farmer to Family Food Box program. You know, it's a $3 billion purchase program nationally. And so then with the awards that came out to various contractors and subcontractors, both on that supplier distributor side and also on the food bank side, you know, there's just a lot of layers to who's getting boxes how, and how the distribution plans were developed and put together, I think, with the contractors that put in bids and proposals to USDA. And I think Steve and Laura Titzer has also put in some comments in the chat box. And I've been tracking and supporting a couple of the more kind of food bank and farmer co-op proposals, and folks that put in proposals to USDA and ended up getting awards. So like Link Foods was mentioned earlier, Puget Sound Food Hub, which Cole and Steve and Kate can talk probably more about their role up in Skagit and Whatcom area, and Evergreen United Food Hub in Mason County. And so those are three of the, I'm just counting up the 11 awards that went to different companies that are based in Washington State, or at least have connections to Washington State. At the same time, there's companies that got national awards, so they might also be shipping nationally and contacting food banks in Washington State about whether they could take boxes and how many. So I think that's been part of the challenge, is just as Steve and others said, both on the supplier side, different distributors might be reaching out to growers trying to get product, and there's just a wide range of, I think, the plans and how much those contractors and distributors communicated to both the farmer and grower side and the food bank side. And we're seeing a few horror stories nationally about that, and that's been in the news a bit. But I will say, I think in the Northwest, we don't have as many of those horror stories happening, which is good news, but there's still a lot of ins and outs and logistics, and I think bottlenecks and challenges that are happening too.
Thanks so much, Chris. We have a couple other comments as well on the call. I can see here that Laura Titzer mentioned on the food bank side. Laura, do you want to chime in and share your perspective?
Sure. Let me my video. I don't know how many calls total we've received, but I know we've received several calls from growers or distributors to see if we could take on distributing their USDA boxes. And as of right now, I'm just looking at the list that I just saw. Because we were actually included in 2 contracts that we knew we were actually a part of, a Full Circle located in Seattle, and then also working with Link Foods that Kendra mentioned, specifically for food boxes out in Eastern and Central Washington. And then additionally, it looks like there's about 3 or 4 other groups that we're now looking at also distributing their boxes as well. But we're starting to have the same concern that's been brought up with just all the different produce and how the food banks the food pantries are gonna be able to sustain all of this and be able to get it all out without things going to waste.
Great, thank you so much. And I know Kendra had to jump off the phone, but she mentioned in the chat box also about Link Foods and their current distribution, and they're keeping it to 25 boxes a week right now as they try to build up the opportunity for local produce to go into those boxes.
Mm.
And I just posted, I pulled together kind of the Washington-based companies that got contracts, which Laura and others have already mentioned a few of these, but this is just pulled them off the USDA contractor list. And I have been calling a few of the larger distributors too. So like one of the largest awards is Pacific Coast Fruit, which it looks like somebody mentioned, $24 million. And this is a mix of mostly produce boxes, but a few are also doing milk. But yeah, these are all public information that USDA posted about about their awards on their website.
Great, thanks, Chris. Any questions that people have specifically about the Farmers to Families Food Box program?
I just had a comment this is Laura, for Chris. Would it be helpful for you, Chris, looking at this to know which ones that we are potentially going to be working with?
Sure, yeah. I just pulled any information here about the food banks is just from me calling up these different distributors and asking them. So if you can fill in blanks, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you right now that, we haven't confirmed. It's just that we have this option that I don't know if we've decided yet, but it's Pacific Coast, Perfect Packed, Marigold, and Darigold.
Okay, cool.
This is Diane. I'm wondering, does the produce have to go to a food bank? I saw one program mentioned that they had boxes that went to the emergency essential workers at hospitals. So I was just wondering, with the amount of produce that's being available to food banks, is that something that might be explored?
It doesn't have to be food banks. So like there's a few school districts that are doing distribution and they can be other nonprofits or hunger relief organizations.
Okay.
I didn't hear about the frontline worker example, but it seems like that would fit within that definition too.
If I recall, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the solicitation actually just required working with a community-based organization.
Yeah.
I'd have to double check that language, but
yeah. So the food
Yeah.
banks or schools were just some examples of those. Generally, if they're doing anti-hunger or hunger relief or work, they could be distribution partners.
So my name is Brandy McFarland. I'm with Skagit Islands Head Start, based out of Mount Vernon through Skagit Valley College. And we've been doing a food distribution program for our families. We are purchasing food and putting together boxes, trying to add in fresh fruit and vegetables. Who would I contact to get in touch to partner with those Farmers to Families food box? Because we would love to give our families as much access to fresh fruits and vegetables and eliminate waste and be able to put our funds in other places with some more food supplement, but also helping them with toothbrushes and household things, because we can do that, but we're limited. So it'd be nice to partner somehow and allow to put our funds somewhere else as well.
That sounds like a good transition to Cole or Steve in Skagit. Do you want to speak to kind of how things are going there in the county with this program in particular?
Did Cole make it onto the call? I didn't in the participants list.
I looked and I didn't see him in there, Steve. Steve
So,
and I
yeah.
talked yesterday about that, and that's how I know about this meeting today. So I wanted to be on here. And I will reach out to him, but I was just wondering if there's any other avenues to go through to partner, but I can contact Cole.
Is he potentially one of the phone numbers online? A 360 number or?
Yeah, I mean, other people have expressed, who I've shared this news with as well, have expressed the same frustration of like, well, who do I contact? I mean, do I call Charlie's Produce directly, or there's these intermediaries like United Way and some of the food bank distributor entities that are reaching out. So I mean, it is, again, it's confused and people are still learning that this thing is even happening. So this is Steve Kreider from Skagit. Let me just read what Cole sent me yesterday. And this is after I alerted him about that call that we had, Brandy, with the Skagit, was it the Health Advisory?
Yes.
Committee folks that met. And so that was the health community. And I jumped in as part of the, it really struck me the gap between the communication. We're all working so hard in difficult situations here, just what's going on in our own organizations, much less what other people are doing. But we in the food world maybe could be reaching out more to the health community to even help people know about these opportunities, especially this new funding and new things that have popped up overnight. But anyway, Cole Bitzenberg directs in Skagit County, our food distribution center. And they have been working with Charlie's Produce to receive these boxes. And another person who's on that call, hi, Steve. I just spoke with Jennifer Sass Walton, who I believe is with our county nutrition office, to see how we might align around food boxes. Again, trying to connect the dots here between supply and need. So we are getting in around 1,000 boxes each of dairy, produce, and combinations, all around 25 to 30 pounds. Right now, we've been channeling these through the food banks, Helping Hands, Community Covenant, La Conner, and Tri-Parish. So not all food banks are even participating in this. And they seem to be reaching saturation. Tri-Parish has arranged to have a truck shipped directly during their distribution, thanks to connection with Catholic Community Services. So yes, I'd like to try to jump on this call tomorrow if I can. Cheers, Cole. So that's impressive. They do have frozen storage. They have a big walk-in cooler that can store things. They've got pallet jacks. They can back in trucks to their loading dock. So it's a very sophisticated, for us, level of to have that distribution center here. And but again, not everybody who knows about it is availing themselves of it, and the capacity of these organizations to actually hold and store the volume is a real issue too.
That would be our biggest issue, and that's one reason we've really stuck to shelf stable and non-perishables. So like dry pasta, rice, heartier vegetables and fruits, like we did broccoli and oranges and potatoes, because I have nowhere to keep milk or lunch meat or things like that. We can purchase it, but then I'd have nowhere for it. So I would need to coordinate a way of like picking up the day I pick up the stuff, if I could go this route, having it distributed that day. And I do have a place to distribute. And side note, Steve, I hope you saw my email that we can work with the CSA boxes at our Pack Place Center. So I emailed you about that, but.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, yeah, so that is a big concern for us, is the storage. We don't have a ton of space, or big freezers. We just have home style fridges and freezers at our centers for our kiddos. So
Yeah.
I will reach out to Cole. I think it could be really good for our families and partnering with our community. So
I wanted to mention also, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I think Kate Smith is on this call too, and she might have some more insight as to what Puget Sound Food Hub is doing. I know that Viva Farms is going to be supplying vegetables once our vegetables start kicking in. It's still early in the season for us, but the Food Hub consolidates from a lot of different farms in their system. But if there's anyone who could speak to what Puget Sound Food Hub is doing, I'd love to hear about it.
Steve, I wish I had my pulse or my finger on the pulse there at the Food Hub too. I don't know, Diane Smith, do you have any word on that? And if not, we can work on communicating with them and have an update to share for next week.
I did contact David, and he said that Andrew was the point person for the Food Hub, and I haven't followed up with a call to him. So, that's a line. Now we just need to connect the dots.
And I did hear that one of their main partnerships is going to be with the Lummi Food Bank initially. But what they're doing beyond that, again, we've got several contract distributors. Full Circle has been approaching the food banks as well. So we've got 3 different entities wanting to supply these boxes through the same small, narrow pipeline. And again, this pipeline is small and narrow because of the capacity to even hold and store, and all the logistics of trying to start new relationships with people that you've never talked to before. So a lot of challenges.
And this is Nichole with WSDA. I've also heard of, Second Harvest going out with their mobile market bus and doing mass distributions. I've also heard that as things progress, we're looking more and more, that they are looking more and more to doing mass distributions of the product themselves at the distribution level, but then taking that product out to different areas.
This is Laura Raymond with WSDA. I think there's probably a lot of differing levels of familiarity with this program, and even those who are maybe more engaged, like Chris and Steve and others, there's a lot of unknowns because it was a very quickly conceived of and developed program. And so, you know, a lot of the issues that everyone's raising, I guess just for what it's worth for background, you know, USDA developed this program, and the bid solicitation, in theory, tasked bidders with establishing upfront relationships with the community-based organizations that would be the distribution sites, and had the general expectation that the distributors would be essentially doing like from the truck to the client's car type of distribution. But of course what we're seeing, and they also, at least in the language framing the program, is identified as supporting local producers and distributors. But as Steve points out, depending on which part of the country you're in, there may or may not have been available product that early in the season. So I just raised that to say, you know, what we're seeing is there's a lot of fast efforts to quickly respond to these new situations related to the pandemic. You know, Nichole earlier pointed out the just massive increase in need that has come. And so again, I feel like this is like, I should just record myself and play it every week. But I would say, to the extent that you are able to share the experiences you are having with these programs with decision makers who are helping create the policies, I think that's an important thing to do. Because I think there's a lot of things happening in that people are wanting to respond quickly to real need. They're wanting to respond to needs on both production and consumption side of our local food system. They're hearing there's a need to support local food systems, but maybe don't really understand local food system capacity issues or what the real investments might be in order to, you know, as Steve pointed out, you know, kind of expand that pipeline a bit. So I think the experiences that everyone is having are really, really important to elevate. So whatever opportunity you have to do that, I would encourage you to grab it.
Thanks, Laura. I feel like too, it sounds like some communities are being saturated while we've had some requests, like Naima Clark from Nurturing Roots was on last week and was inquiring about trying to get more food into her community, and that she did have some infrastructure available. And next week we're going to hear from Valerie Segrist with the Native American Agricultural Fund and Nora Frank with the Northwest Portland Indian Health Board. And I know that Valerie's been working with several tribes to store food at Emerald Downs Racetrack, but also looking at trying to get some more food into tribal communities. So it seems like maybe, and I don't know, you know, the way that this program is working, it sounds like you need to reach out to one of these contractors to find out if you can be a distribution site. Is that correct?
I would say yes, and there's also the layer of, as Steve kind of spoke to, it all depends, and Laura mentioned, it all depends on what the plan was and how realistic or based in reality these contractors put their plans together for how they're going to distribute the boxes. And in some cases, maybe they said, oh, we're going to send them all to Food Lifeline, and then Food Lifeline would be responsible for sending them on to individual food banks. And those individual food banks might have been part of a different plan with a different contractor. So that's part of the different challenges and networks, I think. But so there could be, and I don't know if Laura Titzer is still on, but having talked to most of these distributors, they're might be able to add on new distribution sites. They might also say, well, we're sending our boxes all to Northwest Harvest. So you could contact them about getting your hands on some of these boxes to distribute.
Got it.
But
That's
I
what
do
I
think it
was
is worth.
have a little clarifying question there too, just in terms of if you see, for instance, Cascadia Produce is distributing to nonprofits in King County. Can any nonprofit within King County just contact them and say, hey, I want some of these boxes? You're saying, go ahead, call them and see what they say?
That'd be my suggestion. Not that, I mean, maybe it'll give them a few headaches, but that's the whole point of the program. Like if, I mean, I would say if they might also say, we have homes for all of our boxes already. This is the places that we're sending them.
Gotcha.
Yeah, this is Laura with Northwest Harvest, and I agree with Chris. I think that even if an organization isn't necessarily a food bank like Naima, that to reach out to either of the organizations to see, I will say that right now, Food Lifeline, Northwest Harvest, and Second Harvest has a split on this state. So we're all three of us are serving specific counties due to a statewide kind of agreement we are in with the state. And so it kind of depends on the area, but I would definitely suggest reaching out, and because I know with Food Lifeline, at least, we've been kind of sharing contacts. If someone reaches out to us that right now is in their distribution area, we connect them with Food Lifeline, and the Food Lifeline is doing the same with us. They're connecting us with organizations that right now are just in our service area. And so, yeah, I mean, it's not a promise that we would be able to, but I agree with Chris to just reach out.
Laura, this is Laura Raymond with WSDA. Not to put you on the spot, so if you don't have this answer, that's fine, but I'm curious, do you know with any of these larger contracts and some of the larger distributors, if they are working, if their intention is to work exclusively with the primary food banks, or do you know that? Because that would save a lot of phone calls for a lot of people if we had that information.
I wish I could give you a better answer than what I'm going to say, which is I don't know.
There's the issue we're all talking about, right?
Yeah.
And this is issued nationally, so there's wonderful opportunity and concept here, and I think many of the different parts of the supply chain have all had their own challenges with it and are expressing that nationally in different ways.
And there's investigations going on in the House of Representatives about it right now too, especially about some of the really bizarre, large awardees who got $39 and $40 million and have zero capacity to do any of the things that they promised. So there's been some real problems with it, but it seems in the Pacific Northwest, where we have perhaps better systems, and we talk in food systems terms and have been developing this for the last 10, 15, 20 years, that there is at least dialogues like we're having today, and these groups that know one another at least a little bit, so that you have the trust factor already there to help things kick off. I'd also spoken with the folks in Whatcom at the Bellingham Food Bank, and they seem to be holding this whole thing at arm's length, that they've been approached by everybody who got awards, but they have their own system in place already. They already have their contracts with local farmers. They have plenty of fresh produce because they've been doing these programs and been a real pioneer of it. And having more free boxes of food come pouring in isn't really a help necessarily, according to Max Morange. So they were kind of sitting back to kind of say, well, we're going to wait and see kind of attitude. So it'll be interesting how this all plays out. And I think there's just a lot more food that's trying to be forced than there is actually ways to get it to people. And there's definitely people who need it. So I don't know. I think it's worth continuing checking in on this, carving out this space, because we seem to be the only forum that's talking about it in a way that's kind of solutions-based.
I wonder also, because these awards are through June, what the next set of awards will look like, and if there's some opportunity to get ahead of it, like you said, Steve, using this as a way to connect and do some problem solving, because, are the awards going to come out to the same recipients or contractors again? Are we going to have new contractors and kind of just reiteration of the same challenges? And is there some opportunity for us to be able to maybe provide some recommendations?
So the way my understanding is that the contractors that got awards and the others that put in a bid but didn't get awards put in plans for 4 different periods. And right now we're in the first period that ends June 30th. But there's these July and August, September, October, November, December are the subsequent 3rd periods that USDA will then extend the contracts with the, they can opt to extend the contracts with those distributors. But I did also read an article today that they might issue some new awards. So if folks put in a bid and didn't get an award for this initial period, they might be hearing from USDA to take them up on that offer for these subsequent, July, September, November award periods. So it might be some of both.
And are these,
still,
oh, go ahead.
There's still $2 billion left in the program that they're using to extend contracts or continue purchasing. So some of the contractors here are likely to get, their contracts extended, but there might be new awards that are being made, especially, as we see how it goes nationally.
That's what I was going to ask is, like, for Pacific Coast Fruit, do they need to expend $24 million worth of boxes by the end of June, or is this?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is no, Laura. These are the awards for just the first base period.
That's what I figured. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But the contract, there was only one solicitation. So
Correct.
there is not, unless something changes, which it may, but the solicitation of bids and the award of bids has happened, and solicitors needed to identify which of those timeframe periods they were going to be operating in.
Yeah.
So just like, like Chris is saying, they have more money, maybe they'll make additional awards, or maybe they'll make adjustments to the existing contractors' contracts. But it's not like there's going to be another, unless it changes, which who knows, but there's not going to be another open solicitation, just to clarify that, because that was really confusing for bidders as well.
That's
right. So this represents, sorry, go ahead, Steve.
That's the boat that Viva Farms is in. We applied for period 4, figuring we're going to have this large amount of fall produce and the squashes and that's kind of in our strong suit. And we don't know if we're going to be awarded. No, you'll be told like a month before your period whether or not you're going to be an awardee for that period, which isn't ideal. I mean, we're planting now. We've got stuff in the greenhouse. If they want to give us an award, it would be nice, for that period 4, you'd think the USDA would know that you need to know that in advance to grow for it and have it in place. But so, it's not ideal, was the internal quote from my colleague who wrote that grant, and we found out we were not awarded. We won't know. We're not even going to know until a few weeks before period 4 starts whether we're going to be part of it or not.
Yeah. So they should be announcing between June 1st and June 15th what the July, August awards will look like, and maybe further ones, I don't know. But just the numbers here are just for this base period, but they also, each of these contractors also submitted proposals for the subsequent award period. So this represents just that first piece, and that they are also waiting. So those that did get awards for this first period through June 30th are waiting also to hear back from USDA about what happens next. So,
and is this money awarded as like they submit their receipts or to proof of or did they get the money up front? Or I mean, how did this work? They just push the money out, or is it reimbursed money?
It's reimbursement. They submit invoices to USDA through a USDA system.
Okay.
Yeah. And to bring it back around, so Puget Sound Food Hub, Andrew Yoakum is the one that's been working mostly on their proposal for this. For folks that are curious, they started with this first period, I think mostly a smaller amount because of that seasonality issue, and are sending, I think, most of it to Lummi via Bellingham Food Bank. But I know both Bellingham Food Bank was a core part of their plan, and Max, and then also Skagit Distribution Center for mostly those later periods, as seasonal product actually starts coming on.
Well, thank you for wrangling all that. There's a lot of moving parts, and none of us really know So this has been really helpful for me personally and for our organization. Thank you.
Yeah, and it seems like something we should continue to revisit as these programs continue to roll out, and potentially new contractors coming on, and just trying to help provide maybe some guidelines for how to participate.
But you can see how it'd be confusing for growers who already have contracts in place. You know, I mean, the systems we've created over the last few years, for all this new money to come pouring in and to give it away for free. I mean, we're also trying to recruit people to our SNAP CSA that we're piloting with USDA. So why would someone sign up for a SNAP CSA and use their food stamps to buy a box when there's all these boxes being given away for free? So I don't know.
And this is Nichole from WSDA. I just want to say too is like, you know, this is not our normal distribution channels that what the USDA is doing. This is not normally how they pass down produce or any kind of food items that are kind of supplemented, right? So typically when they do so, they at least provide some, you know, operational funding for the food pantries and other nonprofits that actually implement this, and that is not happening. So essentially they're pushing down all this produce, but not providing any funding to staff the food banks or provide, you know, enough funding to keep the refrigerators running so they can keep that food safe. And so that is a huge issue, and one that I feel like should be addressed at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can tell that we need to add this again to our agenda as we move forward, thinking about the next several weeks. And I just wanted to see if there was any other comments or feedback for our speakers today about Farm to Food Pantry, as well as the Farmers to Families Food Box program. And then we can move on and see if there's any other topics that people want to bring up. I know we were speaking at the beginning of the call today about some of the limitations around meat processing in the state, and I think that is probably a subject that we could devote an entire one of these calls to in the future as well. So. Nichole Witham, do you want to give just a really brief update about some of the meetings that have happened this week about, oh yeah, I see here Laura Raymond would like to give an update on new requirements for ag employers. So let's jump into that first. Go for it, Laura.
I'll just add really quick, Laura, before you jump in. Faith Kreitzer, who joined us a few weeks back, sent me a really great synopsis of the governor's proclamation with a lot of links. So Laura Raymond, please go ahead, but I will share some of those links in the chat as you go.
Okay, sure. I mean, I actually don't want to go into a lot of details because I think this is very new and there's lots to talk about. And so I mostly just wanted to flag for people that as of yesterday, the governor issued new requirements for agricultural employers, and they build on the L&I requirements that you know, you've likely seen. They're posted on WSDA's COVID page and probably on WSU's hub as well. But it expands workplace practices and requirements for agricultural employers to have COVID protections in place for workers. And there are specific requirements for both outdoor and indoor working spaces, as well as any employer provided housing. So I will say they build on the basic requirements, which was really finding ways to maintain physical distancing of a minimum of 6 feet at all times, but they also expand to employer requirements to provide cloth masks or other appropriate PPE as required by the particular hazard level of the task. To have potentially physical barriers for indoor spaces if that's required. There's more specifics around providing and requiring hand washing stations and hand washing practices. There's guidance and requirements related to transportation, employer provided transportation. Let's see, I'm just doing this off of memory. What else am I forgetting? There's expanded requirements around worker training and providing information about both these practices in the language that workers speak and understand, as well as information about sick leave availability, pandemic sick leave. Sort of rights and resources. And finally, there are new requirements for employers to be doing health monitoring to ensure that there are no that people are not coming to work sick. So definitely read the actual proclamation and the actual guidelines that Nichole posted in the chat. At Regional Markets, we're working really hard to try to provide some like user-friendly resources about that. We were literally about to finalize the script on a short video that was going to be multilingual on just general, how do you implement good COVID work practices in your small farm operation, but now we're having to rewrite the script because there's all new requirements. So watch for that hopefully soon, but more information shortly. So that's that. I can try to answer any quick questions, but mostly I just wanted to give people an awareness that that came out yesterday and you may be getting questions. And as far as we can tell, there are not any allowances or exemptions for any small businesses, small scale. So these apply unless new information is clarified. It applies for employers of 1 employee or more.
Great, thank you so much, Laura. And thanks, Nichole, for posting a bunch of information about that as well. And we'll make sure we update the website with additional resources. It says here during the press conference, L&I emphasized that growers operators should use their consultation services to help address use L&I services to help address any questions they have with the new requirements. So make sure that you recommend to people that they reach out to L&I for support as well if they're having trouble understanding the new requirements. Do we have anything else that anyone wants to share? Any uplifting stories, success stories, things that went well this week for you? I see Henry just posted some information from Business Impact Northwest.
Yeah, I just got to jump on and give a couple-minute update on. We have a couple of technical assistance programs for small farms that may be of interest to people. So one is Ready to Sell Small Farm E-commerce pilot program, which we'll be doing in English and Spanish, and it's going to be free. But we're going to bring in, I think we have capacity for 10 to 15 small farms to basically help give them the technical assistance to move online. So selling online, managing their inventory, and then we're giving them access to a technology platform to help support that as well. And then the second piece was, and applications for that are going to be due Thursday. So definitely make sure to, if you know anyone, have them apply soon. And then the second thing is a packaged foods online on-demand course that we're rolling out. So for packaged food business or for a farm that's thinking about adding value-added products, just a short little overview on that. So
great, thank you. And we'll make sure we get these updated on our, I don't know if they're already there or not, but we'll make sure we get them updated on the COVID site. So thanks, we download this chat box. Thank you so much. Anyone else have anything they'd like to share? I'm going to share my screen so you can see information about our next call. And I mentioned earlier, next week we will hear from Valerie Segrist from the Native American Agricultural Fund and Nora Frank from the Northwest Portland Indian Health Board. And she's also affiliated with the Northwest Tribal Food Sovereignty Coalition. And I'm assuming we'll probably also talk about meat.
And I can give, if folks are interested, I can just give a quick update of where we're at with just trying to kind of pull the support community together to collaborate. There's been a lot of different conversations around meat all week. So if we want to spend just a few minutes before we wrap, I'd be happy to give a brief update there.
Laura, Laura Lewis, I have one quick question. So a lot of information gets posted in chat with all those links and that, but how does one access that later? You know, it disappears as soon as we go away from the call. And where does that live to go find some of those links and notes again sometime?
It lives on our website. So on the COVID website, and Nichole can probably even, if she wants, she can share that. I can unshare this. But we do update our website with those links. And then we do download the chat. And that is something we could potentially post. I mean, we post the recording of this call. It goes to our YouTube channel, and then there's a link to it on our website. But if it would be helpful for people, we could potentially also post a PDF of the chat itself. So if people want to reference the chat that happened during the actual recorded call, we can make that available as well. We download the whole thing as a package. So we have all of that information. So if you come to our website, you'll see anything that's been posted, whether it's a link to a resource or it's an event. It's going to be up here over the next couple of days after that call.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, we could definitely have the transcript of the chat be something that we just post along with the video. I will warn people that it's not pretty. The way it cranks it out it's a little bit difficult to read, but it still gives you all of the information. But yeah, any of the links, if there's ever a specific topic that you're like, oh, I wanted to find that, you can go directly to our website and just search in the little search box, type it in, and then it'll give you any of the posts or links that we've cataloged.
Great question, Steve. Okay, well, we've gone for a little over an hour and a half. If anyone else, oh yeah, you want to share a little about meat? Or
I just want to kind of give everyone an update for those of you who aren't necessarily plugged into what's been happening. Some of you are, and potentially just in case you're contacted by any producers or processors in your area over this next several weeks, you can hopefully be able to send them our way to help them or to hear their stories. So basically, our smaller niche scale processors throughout Washington were already tenuous at best in terms of being able to handle the amount of livestock that our producers are producing in Washington. And with COVID, many of you have probably heard about larger scale meat packing plants having to close or limit their production in some way. And now we're seeing similar things starting to happen in some of our smaller scale processing plants. And mainly this is due to labor issues and concerns with different employees that may be at high risk choosing not to come to work, or they may have a family member within their household that is at high risk, so they're choosing not to come to work. So many packing plants have had to really adapt their cutting schedule and are doing this with a skeleton crew of employees, some of which may not be as skilled as those that they have lost recently. So basically, from what we've heard verbatim, people are hemorrhaging money to pay their staff and they aren't happy with the product or quality that's coming out. So many of them have chose to step back and to reevaluate their cutting schedule and how they are going to protect the remaining staff that they have. Which means that a lot of producers over the last week or two have started to receive emails and communications from their processors saying that they're canceling their processing dates that they may have had set up, or their appointments that they may have had for this midsummer or fall timeframe, which is usually when the kind of the busiest season. So now we have producers who very smartly just made it through several weeks of pivoting their business and their marketing plan to adapt to losing restaurants, to losing farmers markets, and so on and so forth. And because of the uptick in consumer interest in local meat because of COVID, they thought they were actually going to have a very good sales year. And now the bottom, or the processing, basically in the processing arena, there's such a bottleneck now that they may not even be able to get those animals processed. The other caveat to all of this, an outside circumstance, is that we are also seeing an influx of animals being shipped in from Midwestern states. And so far, the primary concern has been with swine. So we're seeing truckloads of swine, not only weaners, which are younger pigs, but also full-grown animals coming in from different states where they have also lost their larger scale processing options, and farmers and folks are just doing what they can to offload the animals. So there are a lot of health and safety concerns about that, about swine diseases that we do not currently have in our state that could potentially be introduced. So the state vets and a lot of folks at the WSDA are monitoring that and have given some really great clear direction about how to accept pigs and how they need to go through a certification process if people are interested in getting those pigs. So that's kind of the broad scheme of kind of what's happening right now. And with that, myself and other colleagues at WSU, as well as some folks at the WSDA, have begun to try to meet regularly to pull us all together, to work together to try to provide some support for producers and processors. And at this point, the sad reality is that it's such a complex system that it's not just one. A lot of people are hoping that different regulations will change or that the state will take on inspection. And I don't really see that being very viable. And so I think we're going to have to look at some really creative solutions around paying skilled laborers and shifting out of work skilled laborers into needed positions, but also being able to pay them enough to make it worth their while in terms of hazard pay or whatever the case may be. So right now there are no quick solutions, but we're hoping that we can kind of come together to support the community more. If you're interested in that, please reach out to me. We're going to be having bi-weekly meetings on Wednesdays.
Thanks,
and
Nichole.
Laura Raymond, if you want to add anything, she's been my meat comrade as well. If you have anything to add to that.
Nope, thank you. I'd say we're 10 minutes over, but that was a good synopsis.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone so much. We got a few more things that were put up in the chat that we'll make sure that we try to capture. Marissa from Sustainable Connections mentioned their Whatcom Skagit Farm Tour loop that they're planning. So we will try to capture some of these resources. We'll get those links posted. We'll post a transcript of the chat if that's helpful. And again, thank you all for participating, and we look forward to seeing you next Friday, June 5th. Correct? I hope I got the date right. Okay, thanks everyone. Have a safe weekend. Be well. Appreciate all the work you're doing. I'll see you soon.